Hi, AP Micro. Since we lost time with another snow day, I want to take this opportunity to catch us up with some of the material that we missed. Here's where we've been. We've talked about a firm. Their marginal cost decreases because of returns to scale, and then increases because of increasing marginal. The increasing marginal cost is because the decreasing marginal product. Remember, hiring enough or so many workers, their productivity is a little bit less because there's not that much for them to do, but their wage is still the same. That goes for all variable inputs. So here's the quantity for, again, this is a firm, every firm. Here's their average total cost. Decreases because the cost of making the next one is lower, so the average goes down. Here, the cost of the next one is higher than the average, bringing the average up. And then here is the average variable cost. The average variable cost gets really close to the average total cost because this difference is the average fixed cost. I'm not going to graph it on here, but the average fixed cost goes way down close to zero because when you take that fixed cost and in the denominator divide it by a huge quantity, that's how we end up with that really small fixed cost, which is why the small difference here. These are side-by-side graphs, right? Again, this is catching us up with things that we already know. The supply, all the firms, this is one firm, all the firms, all their marginal costs get added up. Here's the supply, how many people are willing, firms are willing to supply for a certain price. And here is the market demand. Market equilibrium quantity, market equilibrium price. This is the price that all firms face, specifically, or definitely by this firm. That price P star is the market price. If they sell one more, they bring in that price. If the going price is $5, sell one more, bring in $5 more. So that's the marginal revenue. This point of intersection connects with, I'm going to write Q sub F, the quantity that a firm can produce at to equate marginal cost and marginal revenue. To the left of this quantity, the amount that the firm brings in is higher than the cost of making one more. If you're going to bring in more money than it costs, you're making a profit, that makes sense to do that transaction. All the way until they're equal to the point where, well, here, the cost, the marginal cost, the cost of making one more is higher than the marginal revenue. The revenue brought in by making one more, so we wouldn't produce out here. But there are some different scenarios that we've talked about or that we need to talk about. Let me finish here real quick by saying that this big rectangle, and we've done this, is quantity times price. This big rectangle is revenue. Average total cost times quantity gives us the total cost. And we have this, I'm not going to shade it in because I'm going to write a handful more pieces up here. But we have this rectangle as our profit. Revenue, total revenue minus total cost gives us this profit. Well, if there's profit to be had, we've talked about how more firms will join. We're going to have a new supply curve with a new price. I tried to draw this in a specific spot so that when we bring this over, the marginal revenue equals the marginal cost at the point where average total cost hits marginal cost. Why? What's the profit here? At this quantity, the revenue is this big red rectangle. And the cost, the total cost, is also this big red rectangle. This is the price of zero profit. The price of zero profit. Firm joined, they still make some profit. Another firm joins. Firms keep joining the market, increasing the supply until the price is low enough that there's no profit to be made, and then no more firms join. I'm going to make some sort of an extreme example here. Let's pretend, and I'm not even going to edit the market graph, that there's something with demand, and all of a sudden this product, there's so much less demand, maybe the price is like way down here. I'm going to call this P5, because I'm going to have some more prices in the middle. At this price, that's the marginal revenue. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost here. But this firm has this rectangle. Green rectangle is the revenue. But here's the cost. The total cost to produce, actually it goes all the way up. Here's the total cost. That's the variable cost. Here's the total cost to create, right, because this is the average total cost curve. This big rectangle is the total cost for that low quantity. The firm shouldn't produce if they're making that much of a loss. In fact, they shouldn't produce if the price is anywhere above this P5 up until the price becomes, right, this average variable cost. Here's why. I've given an example where I create like a t-shirt business, and it cost me in my example $1,000 to buy the squeegee, the board, to get a nice stencil made, and then I can go through, and those are my fixed costs. Then I can go through and I do the squeegee, and it doesn't take much work, but there's some variable cost with the cost of the t-shirt and the cost of ink. The cost of t-shirts and the cost of ink are my variable cost. If I'm going to bring in less money, the marginal revenue, then what that variable cost is, I shouldn't produce anymore. Said another way, if I can recuperate some of my fixed cost, if I can recuperate, get back some of my fixed cost, that $1,000 I spent on the squeegee and the board and whatnot, if I can get some of that money back, even if it might not be all of it, then I should produce. I should produce if my average variable cost if my average variable cost is higher than my marginal revenue. It's called the shutdown rule, so I should not produce if my marginal revenue is lower than my average variable cost. Let me draw another example. What if this price was actually in here, P3? It can be a little bit difficult to see this graph. You can either zoom in. I also have a handout on our Canvas page that you can see these different price levels. I call that P3. Here's marginal revenue equals marginal cost, Q3. And here I would be producing at a loss. My total cost is bigger than my total revenue. But here's why I would produce even with a loss. Let's say I made my squeegee and the board and the stencil for my t-shirts, and that cost me $1,000. But because I can get maybe $3 per t-shirt, and getting those $3 per t-shirt, that's higher than how much it cost me to buy the blank t-shirt and buy a little bit of ink, I should still make some of those t-shirts. I might not make that whole $1,000 back, that was my fixed cost, but I might make some of it back. And that's the point here, is I might lose $500, say, but I'm already in the hole $1,000. I can't get that back. That's my fixed cost. That's called a sunk cost. I'm down $1,000 for all that startup material. What can I do? Well, I can produce and make some of it back. I might not be able to make all of it back, and I won't make a profit. There'll be a loss, but I'll make some of it back. I'd rather lose $500 than lose $1,000. That's this idea of a shutdown cost, but then producing as long as the average variable cost is lower than the marginal revenue. So this is the shutdown rule. I should shut down if my marginal revenue, how much I'm bringing in, is less than the variable cost. Because variable costs vary by production. If I want to produce more, I need to purchase more of these variable cost things. If I'm selling t-shirts, they're just plain t-shirts and the ink. So let me walk through our 5 prices to end this here. The first price, this is profit. There's a big rectangle, and I didn't highlight it, of a firm making profit. That's the starting scenario that we worked with. Then something happens, the supply shifts, maybe demand shifts in the market, and the price goes down. Price goes down to this red line here, where the firm no longer makes any profit. And that's what I call P2 over on this side. Well, if, again, the price drops below and there starts to be zero or starts to be negative profit, a loss, a firm would still produce if they were getting back some of their fixed costs. Then if the price drops enough that the average variable cost connects with or is equal to the marginal revenue, that's the shutdown condition. That means that a firm right there is indifferent of whether to shut down or produce. If the price drops even lower, where this is the green price here, is below the average variable cost, that means I might get $1 for the t-shirts, but it costs me $1.50 to make one more t-shirt. If I'm already in the hole $1,000, I don't want to start losing 50 cents more to make each t-shirt. These 5 prices are the idea of the shutdown rule. And right next to this video on our Canvas page, I'll put the handout that you can clearly see where all these prices hit. That's the big concepts: profit, zero profit, producing but at a loss, and not producing. And this connection piece is the shutdown rule. Any price lower, the firm would shut down. Any price higher, the firm would still produce.